Good afternoon, everyone. This is the news with b.c.begley. I am your host, and it's Tuesday, December the 16th, 2025. Let's go right into the top news stories for today. Nick Reiner has been arrested and charged with murder in connection with the deaths of his parents, filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner. The couple were found dead in their Los Angeles home on Sunday, December the 14th, after authorities and firefighters responded to a medical call, and they were reportedly discovered by their daughter Romy. Police said Nick Reiner is being held without bail and was booked on murder charges following questioning by the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division. Rob and Michelle Reiner had been married since 1989 and shared 3 children together, with Nick having previously spoken publicly about struggles with addiction and homelessness, People magazine has reported. In a statement, the Reiner family expressed profound sorrow over the sudden loss and requested privacy during the difficult time. At least 15 people were killed and more than 24 injured in a shooting at a Hanukkah event at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, authorities have said. Police identified the suspects as a 50-year-old father and his 24-year-old son, with the older suspect fatally shot by police officers and the younger hospitalized with critical injuries. Officials declared the attack an act of terrorism aimed at Jewish people, with victims including a Holocaust survivor, a 10-year-old child, and 2 rabbis. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the gunmen were inspired by Islamic State ideology and announced the government would consider tightening gun laws and intensifying efforts to combat anti-Semitism, NBC News has reported. Ahmed al-Ahmed was praised as a hero for disarming one of the attackers and is recovering after undergoing surgery for gunshot wounds. Federal trial proceedings began on Monday for Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan, who is accused of helping a man evade immigration authorities inside her courtroom. Prosecutors allege Dugan directed Eduardo Flores Ruiz, an illegal immigrant wanted by federal agents, to exit through a back hallway after learning that officers were waiting to arrest him. She faces charges of obstructing law enforcement and concealing an individual, which together carry a potential prison sentence of up to 6 years, and she was suspended following her arrest, the Wall Street Journal has reported. Defense attorneys argue Dugan acted within judicial authority and followed courthouse policy regarding interactions with ICE, calling the case politically motivated, aimed at the Trump administration's push for aggressive deportations. The closely watched trial is expected to last several days and comes as courts nationwide grapple with immigration enforcement actions inside of courthouses. NASDAQ plans to file with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission to introduce round-the-clock trading of stocks, aiming to meet the growing global demand for U.S. equities. The exchange, home to major tech companies like Nvidia, Apple, and Amazon, is taking its first formal step toward non-stop trading 5 days a week, targeting a potential launch in the second half of 2026. Investor interest in extending trading hours has increased in recent years, prompting regulators to update rules and approve proposals from major exchanges. The U.S. stock market accounts for nearly 2/3 of global listed company value, with foreign holdings totaling $17 trillion last year, Reuters has reported. U.S. President Donald Trump announced he will sign an executive order classifying fentanyl and its core precursors as, quote, weapons of mass destruction, framing it as part of his administration's intensified language against drug cartels. The move follows prior measures labeling Latin American cartels as, quote, foreign terrorist organizations and referring to drug smugglers as, quote, narco-terrorist. Trump argued that fentanyl trafficking is intended to harm Americans and described the order as a step to protect the country from the drug's deadly effects. The order directs executive agencies to take actions to eliminate the threat of illicit fentanyl, though it is unclear what practical or legal impact the WMD designation will have, Al Jazeera has reported. Under U.S. law, weapons of mass destruction include chemical, biological, or radioactive weapons and certain destructive devices, but the label does not automatically change how fentanyl used medically is regulated. President Donald Trump filed a $10 billion defamation lawsuit against the BBC on Monday, alleging that a documentary aired before the 2024 election deceptively edited his January 6, 2021 speech. The lawsuit, which was filed in federal court in Miami, Florida, seeks $5 billion in damages for each of two counts: defamation and violating Florida's Deceptive and Unfair Trade Practices Act, and request a jury trial. Trump's legal team claims the BBC, quote, intentionally, maliciously, and deceptively spliced his speech to interfere in the 2024 election, while the broadcaster maintains it regrets the edit, but it denies a basis for defamation. This marks President Trump's third media lawsuit while in office, following cases against the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and continues a broader pattern of legal action against media outlets over the past decade, Axios has reported. Legal experts note the high bar for defamation claims by public figures, and the case could influence whether President Trump targets even more foreign broadcasters in the future. The DOJ announced on Monday the arrest of 4 people in Los Angeles for allegedly plotting coordinated bomb attacks on New Year's Eve. According to federal court documents, the suspects are members of the extremist Turtle Island Liberation Front, or the TILF, and they plan to plant backpacks containing pipe bombs at 5 different locations across the city. The plot involved detailed instructions, including using burner phones, disguising locations, and streaming movies at home as alibis, with explosives tested in the Mojave Desert. The FBI said the group used the encrypted messaging app Signal under the chat name, quote, Order of the Black Lotus, to coordinate and provide lists of materials and instructions for assembling these devices, CNN has reported. Officials emphasized that the bombs were intended to target U.S. companies rather than individuals, and that the suspects allegedly planned to warn anyone nearby before detonation. The defendants are set to appear in federal court on Monday afternoon. 2 Iowa National Guard members, Sergeant Edgar Brian Torres Tovar, 25 years old, and Sergeant William Nathaniel Howard, 29 years old, were killed in a weekend attack in Syria, blamed on the Islamic State. A U.S. civilian interpreter was also killed, and 3 other National Guard members were wounded. 2 are in stable condition, and 1 is in good condition. The attack occurred near Palmyra during a meeting between U.S. and Syrian security forces, and the gunman, a reassigned Syrian guard suspected of Islamic State ties, was killed. President Donald Trump and the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth vowed retaliation against the Islamic State, while emphasizing that the Syrian government was not responsible, PBS has reported. Torres Tovar and Howard were remembered as dedicated soldiers and cherished members of the Iowa National Guard, with family and colleagues honoring their bravery, faith, and commitment to service. SpaceX successfully launched 29 Starlink satellites from Florida early on Monday, marking the 100th Falcon 9 flight from the state in 2025. The rocket lifted off at 12:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time from Cape Canaveral's Space Launch Complex 40, and then reached space about 8 minutes and 40 seconds later. After a coast period and a second engine burn, the Falcon 9 upper stage deployed the satellites, completing the mission. The rocket's first stage returned safely to the Atlantic Ocean and landed on an autonomous drone ship which is named a Shortfall of Gravitas after completing its 9th flight, Space.com has reported. This launch followed a Starlink mission from California the day before and was SpaceX's 163rd Falcon 9 flight in 2025, with another launch scheduled from Kennedy Space Center on December the 16th. Okay, here's a look at the live weather forecast, or the live weather radar from the National Weather Service. I'm sorry. And if you guys could just turn the heat on outside, that'd be great. All right, let's go to the National Weather Forecast for today. Heavy rain, mountain snow, and strong winds are all expected across the Northwest this week as multiple low-pressure systems move through. The first system arrives tonight, bringing heavy rain from Northern California to Western Washington, and significant snow to the Cascades and Olympics, where several feet of accumulation are possible by Thursday. Snow and rain will also spread into the Northern Rockies, with up to 1 to 2 feet of snow in some areas, prompting widespread winter, wind, and flood warnings. Meanwhile, upper-level ridging will keep temperatures above average across the west and the central parts of the United States, with potential record highs. And in the east, Arctic air will gradually weaken starting on Wednesday, while showers and thunderstorms develop along the South Texas coast. UPS will invest $120 million in 400 pickle robots to automate unloading trucks, part of its broader $9 billion automation plan aimed at cutting labor costs and boosting profits. The robots use AI-powered arms on mobile bases to lift boxes up to 50 pounds from shipping containers onto conveyor belts, typically paying for themselves in 18 months. UPS plans to deploy the robots in multiple facilities in the later half of 2026 and on to 2027, following successful testing and pilot projects. The initiative is part of UPS's largest network reconfiguration in history, which has included closing 93 facilities and cutting 34,000 jobs as the company reduces low-profit e-commerce volume, Transport Topics has reported. Pickle Robot, backed by investors like Toyota Ventures, competes with companies such as Boston Dynamics, and venture funding for warehouse robotics is expected to hit record levels in 2026. Italian archaeologists have uncovered the remains of the Sun Temple, belonging to a king or pharaoh near Cairo, Egypt, the Egyptian Antiquities Ministry has announced. The temple, which dates to Egypt's 5th dynasty, is part of a monumental complex dedicated to the sun god Ra and is among the few solar temples identified to date. Excavation revealed more than half of the structure, over 1,000 square meters in size, including column bases, wall coverings, granite thresholds, and a sloping ramp likely linking the temple to the Nile. The team also found 2 wooden pieces of the ancient Egyptian game Sanat, similar to modern chess, CBS News has reported. The place is known for smaller pharaoh pyramids, and this discovery marks only the second confirmed 5th dynasty solar temple, shedding new light on ancient Egyptian religious architecture. Ford is shifting its electric vehicle strategy, canceling all electric F-150 Lightning and focusing more on hybrid trucks and battery storage for data centers and the power grid. The company expects nearly $20 billion in charges through 2027, with over $5 billion in cash spent in the next 2 years as it pivots to meet customer demand for more affordable, practical vehicles. Future F-150 Lightnings will be extended-range EVs combining electric motors with gasoline engines, while Ford will still launch a new line of affordable EVs, starting with a mid-size electric pickup truck in 2027. The company is repurposing its Tennessee EV plant for gas-powered trucks, ending its joint battery venture with SK On and investing $2 billion to produce stationary batteries in Kentucky, resulting in temporary layoffs, Axios has reported. Ford aims for 50% of its global sales to be hybrids, extended-range EVs or full EVs by the year 2030, and it expects these changes will make its EV business profitable by 2029 while raising its year-end profit outlook to $7 billion. The Bank of Japan is expected to raise interest rates Friday for the first time since January, potentially hitting their highest level in 30 years and adding pressure to debt markets. Rising yields on Japanese government bonds and a weaker yen reflect concerns over Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's fiscal policies and Japan's heavy reliance on imports. Despite a 0.6% contraction in the third quarter, inflation has remained above the Bank of Japan's 2% target, with core consumer prices up 3% in October, prompting policymakers to act, the AFP has reported. The rate hike, expected to move the main rate from 0.5% to 0.75%, follows Japan's recent stimulus package, funded largely by borrowing, raising fears over the country's already high debt-to-GDP ratio. Analysts warn that higher rates and fiscal concerns may undermine economic stability and medium to long-term financial market health, offsetting stimulus efforts. PayPal announced Monday that it has applied to form PayPal Bank, which would allow the company to offer loans to small businesses. The move, subject to review by the FDIC and Utah's Department of Financial Institutions, aims to expand PayPal's banking-like services and support economic growth. The bank would also offer interest-bearing savings accounts to customers, complementing existing credit lines, CNBC has reported. The CEO said this initiative will strengthen efficiency and help small business growth across the United States. Following the announcement, PayPal shares rose 1.5% in extended trading, despite the stock fallen about 29% so far in 2025. Police continue searching for the gunman who killed 2 Brown University students and wounded 9 others, releasing new videos and images of a person of interest seen near the campus on Saturday. Earlier, authorities had detained another individual at a hotel, but released them after evidence pointed in a different direction, leaving no known suspect. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $50,000 for information leading to the gunman's identification, arrest, and conviction, and officials are urging the public to submit tips, videos, or photos. The victims have been identified while several injured remain in critical or stable condition at Rhode Island Hospital, CBS News has reported. Brown University canceled the remainder of classes and exams for the semester, with campus leaders and officials emphasizing the need to support survivors and continue the investigation. The U.S. military carried out strikes on 3 suspected drug trafficking boats in the eastern Pacific Ocean on Monday, killing 8 people. This according to U.S. Southern Command. The operation, which is part of Operation Southern Spear, targets vessels linked to designated terrorist organizations and narcotics trafficking, with at least 95 people killed in previous strikes in September. The Trump administration considers the campaign an armed conflict against drug cartels, allowing lethal strikes without judicial review, though some lawmakers and legal experts have raised concerns about potential war crimes. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer announced an all-senators briefing on Tuesday with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who will also brief House lawmakers separately, CNN has reported. The strikes coincide with a broader U.S. pressure campaign on Venezuela, including sanctions on shipping companies and the seizure of a sanctioned tanker. U.S. officials indicated Monday that a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine may be closer than ever, with roughly 90% of issues reportedly resolved. Discussions in Berlin involved U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, focusing on a U.S.-authored 20-point peace plan. Proposed terms include NATO-style security guarantees for Ukraine, reconstruction efforts, and measures to deter further Russian incursions, with Russia reportedly open to Ukraine joining the EU. While consensus has been reached on many points, final approval from leaders in Washington, Kyiv, and Moscow is still needed, ABC News has reported. Russia's deputy foreign minister said Moscow is ready for a deal, describing the parties as, quote, on the verge of a diplomatic solution. A Massachusetts jury on Monday found Brian Walsh guilty of first-degree murder for killing his wife, Anna Walsh, and dismembering her body 3 years ago. The verdict followed nearly 2 weeks of testimony in Norfolk County Superior Court, where prosecutors argued Walsh was motivated by money and his wife's affair, detailing how he methodically dismembered and disposed of her body. Walsh's defense claimed that Anna Walsh died suddenly and he panicked, searching online for body disposal methods and called no witnesses to trial. He had previously pleaded guilty to misleading police and improper disposal of her body, and was already a convicted fraudster, NBC News has reported. Anna Walsh disappeared after a New Year celebration in 2023, and her body has never been recovered. Today is December 16th, 2025, and on this day in history, in the year 1773, the Boston Tea Party began. American colonists dumped 342 chests of British tea into the Boston Harbor to protest taxation without representation, a key event leading up to the American Revolution. In the year 1944, the Battle of the Bulge began. Germany launched a major surprise offensive against Allied forces in Belgium during World War II. And in the year 1991, Kazakhstan gained its independence from the Soviet Union. December the 16th is also National Chocolate Covered Anything Day. And real quick, while you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you can stay up to date on all of our news stories and our live show. And now let's go into the last block of news for today. The U.S. has collected over $200 billion in tariffs in 2025 under new duties imposed by President Trump. This according to Customs and Border Protection. These tariffs, including reciprocal and fentanyl-related duties, were implemented without congressional approval and are currently facing legal challenges in the U.S. Supreme Court. Collections dropped slightly in November as imports slowed and some duties were reduced, but CPB emphasized the tariffs' role in protecting U.S. industries and the economy. A previous federal circuit found that Trump lacked authority to impose such tariffs unilaterally, stating that the Constitution grants Congress the power to levy taxes and tariffs, CNBC has reported. Companies like Costco are suing to recover payments and seek an injunction against further collection while the U.S. Supreme Court case proceeds. A Connecticut judge on Monday disbarred Hunter Biden for violating state attorney conduct rules, following complaints related to his federal gun and tax convictions. Biden consented to the disbarment and admitted to attorney misconduct, but did not admit to any criminal wrongdoing. He was previously disbarred in Washington, D.C. back in May. The judge cited violations including dishonesty, fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation, and referenced his prior felony convictions, including lying on a 2018 gun purchase and tax-related offenses. Biden appeared virtually with his lawyer, but he did not speak at the hearing, and the disciplinary office noted his presidential pardon, ABC News has reported. Hunter Biden had been admitted to the Connecticut bar back in 1997, a year after graduating from Yale Law School. Flash floods in the Moroccan town of Safi have killed at least 37 people, with search and rescue operations still ongoing. The coastal town was hit by a torrent of rain that swept away cars and debris, marking the deadliest flood in Morocco in over a decade. Survivors are being treated at local hospitals, with 2 in intensive care, while schools remain closed due to mud and debris. Authorities have launched an investigation into whether anyone is responsible for the scale of the damage, and civil protection teams are clearing the streets, Al Jazeera has reported. Morocco, facing its 7th consecutive year of severe drought, has seen increasingly intense storms, exacerbated by climate change and record-high temperatures last year. Astronomers using the James Webb Space Telescope may have found the first evidence of monster stars that existed shortly after the Big Bang, with masses up to 10,000 times that of the Sun. These prehistoric stars, now extinct, likely collapsed into massive black holes, leaving behind chemical fossils in the universe. The discovery came from studying the galaxy GS 3073, which is 12.7 billion light-years away, where an unusual nitrogen-to-oxygen ratio suggests the influence of these massive stars. Confirming their existence could help explain how supermassive black holes grew so rapidly in the early universe, Space.com has reported. These cosmic giants burned briefly, living only about 250,000 years, but left detectable chemical signatures billions of years later, much like fossils revealed dinosaurs on Earth. The Vatican unveiled its nativity scene and lit its 25-meter Christmas tree in St. Peter's Square on Monday, accompanied by a band, a chorus, and dancers in traditional costumes. Now, the spruce tree came from Italy's German-speaking autonomous province on the Austrian border, while the life-size nativity scene was designed and featured Southern Italian architectural elements. Now, the governor highlighted the peaceful coexistence of Italian, German, and Ladino language groups in the region. The inauguration is part of Christmas season events, including Christmas Eve Mass and the Pope's traditional address on Christmas Day, marking the close of the Jubilee year begun by Pope Francis, the AP has reported. Earlier, Pope Leo condemned the anti-Semitic violence in Sydney during Hanukkah in a separate audience with the donors of the decorations. Okay, everybody, that is our show for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. Unfortunately, it was kind of a slow news story type day today. I wish I had that, what was that Jim Carrey movie where he just creates an asteroid and it crashes to Earth and he happens to be right on scene for the exclusive shot. We all, as journalists, we all wish we had that power, but we don't, so it is a slow news day. It is what it is. Hopefully tomorrow will be better. I will see everybody tomorrow for another episode at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And until then, I hope